Terry has been studying chiropractic philosophy for a while. He's put together some really interesting looking slides and presentations over the years. He's studied chiropractic philosophy, got a diplomate through the ICA. So, you know, he's committed to what he's going to be talking about tonight. And he just wants us to keep it forefront of our minds, share it with other chiropractors. We need more successful chiropractors, right, if we're going to grow chiropractic in Spartanburg, in South Carolina, in Blacksburg, in Somerville, wherever we are. Okay, so please welcome Terry. He's going to take us for the remainder of the night.
Hey, thanks for everybody coming out tonight. You know, I like this sort of thing, and part of what we do is come in here to learn something. But the other half of what we're here for, I think, is just to get together and hang out with other chiropractors and just talk it up and socialize a little bit. We're a profession of violence. We never see each other outside of our offices and stuff very often, and I think things like this are just really valuable to get us together and interact with each other and talk chiropractic, because when we're not at chiropractic things, chiropractic isn't being discussed, and it just helps reinforce chiropractic within us. So, I'm going to talk about just the introduction, and actually the first 7 articles in the introduction to Stevenson's textbook. Stevenson came up with this thing in 1927, and kind of an interesting story how all that got started. But the first article that we're going to get into is chiropractic defined. What is chiropractic? And like I said, we're just going to start with the introduction. Stevenson's the introduction has 24 articles in it, 34 pages in the introduction. That's all there is. If you just look at the introduction to Stevenson's text, you'll know more than most chiropractors that are practicing. This is an introduction to the whole text. It's an introduction to the philosophy of chiropractic. And if you would just go over the introduction periodically, it would really help strengthen your knowledge for chiropractic. For the first 20 years of practice, I didn't crack a book. I just went out and practiced after I got out of college. And then I started getting into some programs where I was starting to go back over the philosophy and recalling things that I learned in first, second, and third quarter. And, you know, I had the luxury of having Tom Gilardi teach chiropractic philosophy to me. And he's one of the few people that has a really strong grip of what chiropractic is, a really good handle on that. And that was a terrific experience for me. And going back, I didn't appreciate it so much going through it, but going back and looking at it after the fact really excited me. And when I was in school, I studied chiropractic to learn it. I studied it to learn for the test. I studied it to learn to get out of school. When I got out and started on the second round, I studied it to know it. And big difference between what you learn for a test and what you learn to know and put into practice and take advantage every day. This book came out in 1927, Stevenson's, and interesting, BJ was teaching using notes for about 6 years that were an accumulation of notes from 1895 up to about 1921. And he took those notes and put them together, and that's what he was teaching freshman, sophomore, junior, senior chiropractic classes with. 1927, Ralph Stevenson comes along, and he took those notes and put them into a textbook form to teach chiropractic. And that's where this came from. It's just an organization of the notes that were accumulated by Dee and BJ. And they're studying their research for chiropractic. This is the 1927 definition of chiropractic. And I really have to respect Dee and BJ for who they were and what they were.
They're the founders. DD discovered this. This was his thing. He named it. Chiropractic is what he said it was. He owned it. We want to try and add to, take away from, move, shift, whatever, to suit our needs today. This, in my opinion, is what chiropractic is. This is what he said it was, and we should be working off of this definition. Chiropractic is a philosophy, a science, and an art of things natural. The word natural, you need to learn to respect language. Take the word natural and just put it in the back of your head for a while here tonight. We're going to come back to that. That word has a lot of meaning in what we do as chiropractors. Chiropractic is an art of things natural. It is a system of adjusting the segments of the spinal column by hand for the correction of the cause of dis-ease, for the cause of disease, dis-ease. As we move through time, everybody wants to do their own thing with chiropractic, and they want to make it suit them, and they come up with their own definitions. And so I pulled up a couple other definitions from the major organizations to see how they're defining chiropractic now and how that compares to what DD and BJ created back in the beginning. This is from the ICA, or ACA. Is anybody affiliated with the ACA? Good. Chiropractic, this is hilarious to me. And this is a national organization. And actually, this is the organization that's kind of running the show right now. And this is funny. Chiropractic is a branch of the healing arts, which is concerned with human health and disease. It's a branch of the healing arts that's concerned with health.
Yeah.
Who else? Who else is in the healing arts that's concerned with health? Everybody. What do they do? What do they do here? Is there any explanation of what chiropractic is? They glammed onto something, they grabbed onto something that was popular in chiropractic, I think in the 50s, 60s, whatever. Chiropractic is a drug-free, non-surgical science. We don't use pharmaceuticals or incisive surgery. Now there's a sentence that makes a lot of sense. We're drug-free and non-surgical. We don't use pharmaceuticals or surgery. Okay, so we take care of health, but we don't use drugs or surgery. But anything else is wide open. And I look at this and I think this comes from the chiropractic organization in the country right now. And my first thought is, boy, this is really stupid because it doesn't say anything. But then I thought, this is really smart. This doesn't say anything. This leaves the door wide open for this brand of chiropractic to be all that it wants to be. Anything. The ICA, on the other hand, the other big organization, they don't say what chiropractic is. They say the practice of chiropractic, the practice consists of an analysis of interference with normal nerve transmission and expression produced by abnormalities of one or more vertebral motor units. We like to use words sometimes. We change the original and we throw in words, I think, to try and make us sound more important or to make us sound smarter. You know, it's not a vertebra anymore, it's a vertebral motor unit. Or other skeletal structure. So we're doing vertebral motor units, but we're doing everything else too, according to these guys. And the correction thereof by adjustment for these structures for the restoration and maintenance of health. So they're moving bones here, there, and wherever for the correction and maintenance of health. And they do it without drugs and surgery. You know, that was not in the original definition of what chiropractic is. And I thought, well, why didn't BJ put that in there? Why didn't that come up? Because they said what they said what they were so strong, they didn't have to say what they weren't. This is what we are. They said it with confidence, and said it with strength. And they didn't have to backtrack and say what they weren't. This is the IFCO, and that's what I would think most of the people in this room are affiliated with. And they go back to what chiropractic is. Good for them. Chiropractic is a vitalistic philosophy. There's another word. Put that in the back of your mind. We're a vitalistic philosophy. I thought they said we were a philosophy of science and art of things natural. That's a direct contradiction to a vitalistic philosophy. It consists solely of a non-therapeutic objective of locating, analyzing, and assisting in the correction of the vertebral subluxation because they are detrimental to the expression of innate intelligence. We'll see in another definition, they've eliminated a lot of controversial words that seem to get people sidetracked or confused or worried about what people think of what we do. And they tried to simplify the definition here. And why do you change a definition? Why would you want to change a definition from the original? We change it to make it clearer, easier to understand. You change it to bring it up to date and use modern terminology and fit the modern mood. Or you change it just to change it for your own purposes, whatever they are. It seems like we updated our definition to eliminate some questionable words that other our opponents frowned upon, dis-ease and things natural. And our opponents also don't like philosophy. They ridicule us for being philosophical, and they ridicule us for having a philosophical foundation. They've taken philosophy out of the schools. They've taken philosophies out of the tests. They've eliminated philosophies from their practices. And I don't think we understand what philosophy is enough to stand up and defend against that because we allowed that to happen. Philosophy and philosophers were the leaders of the civilized world. They were the philosophers were the ones that created modern civilization with their thinking. And we had two great philosophers founding and developing our profession. And we let people say that philosophy is the hokey pokey when that's what it's all about. That's the answers to all the questions. And because we weren't secure in our philosophy, we allowed people to ridicule us for being philosophers, and we let the philosophy slip away. This is a definition by Rob Sennett, if anyone knows him. He's a chiropractor in Chicago, real sharp guy. I think he hit a home run with this. He wrote an article, and it was in the ICU Review back in 2003. And he took BJ's definition of philosophy, and he just clarified it. He explained it, and did a great job of it. And so we'll take a look at it real quick. Chiropractic is a philosophy, science, and art of a non-religious nature. A system of adjusting segments of the spinal column without the use of surgical means for the correction of incoordination caused by vertebral subluxation. Rob says, many manipulated the intent of the profession by proclaiming to redefine or revise sweeping areas of our chiropractic philosophy. To better understand the reasons for these actions, we'll first examine the intention found within his definition. To better understand the crux of these issues, we need to focus on three of the most misunderstood portions of our definition. For clarity, I've underlined these phrases below. Chiropractic is a philosophy, science and art of things natural. There's the natural. A system of adjusting segments of the spinal column by hand, and mostly in modern times with instrument adjusting things. That's created some back and forth within the profession. But that wasn't what it was all about when it was put into the definition. And for the correction of the cause of dis-ease. Dis-ease. And that word dis-ease gets a lot of chatter because people don't understand what it is. And if you don't understand the philosophy, you don't understand the words. And if you don't understand the words, it's hard to defend what it is that we're talking about. So BJ explained that the use of things natural was to separate chiropractic from religious practices. There are things that are natural and there are things that are beyond the natural, the supernatural. Religion deals with the supernatural, things beyond the natural. Chiropractic, on the other hand, only deals with things within the natural. Not understanding what he meant by natural, he went with, Rob says, tried to clarify it with a non-religious, a non-supernatural. Chiropractic is a non-supernatural philosophy. Words natural were designed to use to exclude, eliminate any intervention of a supernatural divine character. There is nothing beyond the natural involved in making an adjustment. It's a physical force introduced into a physical body. There's nothing supernatural going on there. What we do as chiropractors, our part of the equation is strictly natural. In other words, to exclude miracles in the strict sense of the word, or to distinguish chiropractic from religion or any kind of miraculous healing. If you're a person of faith, you understand miracles, you understand other types of healing, and that's great, and that's what that's all about, but that's not chiropractic. Chiropractic is about doing things within the natural realm. The second word, or the second phrase, by hand only, has caused unnecessary division amongst the profession. And again, it's most construed to be against instrument adjusting. But that's not what the term was put in there for. In the developmental years of chiropractic, there was a concern that the medical practitioners, more accurately surgeons, might invade the practice of chiropractic. And I believe the very first student at Palmer College, or that the Palmers taught, was a medical doctor. Is that? Yeah. And so these guys knew about health, they knew about the body, and this was something else they wanted to add to their bag. Not so much that they were into chiropractic, but it was another thing they wanted to have into their bag with them. Remember, there were many medics who became chiropractors in those early years. Most likely this concern developed from the discussions of this possibility with most medics becoming chiropractors. And it's interesting, in Europe, a lot of chiropractors can't practice chiropractic without getting a medical license first. And in South America, the same thing's going on. They have to get a medical license. There's not a chiropractic board or anything. They get a medical license, and then they supplement their medical training with chiropractic work. What is that called?
In South America?
Yeah, there's a word for that. They're doing that in Argentina.
Well, in Argentina, it's the kinesiologists.
But they're adding chiropractic to a medical license, and they're doing that in some of the European countries also, because there isn't a chiropractic school. They're just adding it onto a medical. Yeah, another profession. Be that as it may, the major reason had nothing to do with instrument adjusting, but was to separate chiropractic from surgery. The following quote is from a 1928 issue of Palmer's Fountainhead News. On the basis of prior arts, writes, the above facts show that adjustments of the spine by hand for the purpose of correcting malalignments, not subluxations, but malalignments, because that's all the deeper they understood it, is clearly the property of surgeons. And when we look at that, that's a pretty bizarre statement, actually, to think that they would come out and say that, because we can't imagine them coming out and doing that now. But if you go back a couple of years, when vitamins and supplements were starting to come big onto the market, and people were using supplements to treat conditions, The medical doctors wanted to make vitamins only available by prescription. They wanted to have control of that so they can control how people use them. And that's what was going on here. It's not that big of a stretch. They didn't get chiropractic, but it was something that they wanted to have control of. So by hand only, kept it out of the hands of the surgeons. This argument was made to equate chiropractic with surgery by an outside group. From such writings, it can be seen that the perceived threat of the surgeons was very real at the time. And physical therapists are one to encroach in on chiropractic. Now, if you see the equipment they're using and what they go through in their training, they're doing manipulation. They're doing it for a different reason, but they're doing very similar things to what we're doing. They'd love to come in and take control of our profession. As much as they don't understand it, it's just about ownership. And then dis-ease, disease. Nothing brought more distaste for the philosophy of chiropractic as the concept of the vertebral subluxation being the cause of dis-ease, of dis-ease. In the ICA case, Wilkes versus the AMA, Dr. Winterstein of National College, this is why philosophy is so important. The colleges that don't teach philosophy don't understand philosophy, and the president of the college didn't get chiropractic. He didn't understand chiropractic philosophy. And he refuted the idea that the vertebral subluxation causing disease. This was based upon the misconception of chiropractic philosophy. He didn't understand the difference between disease and disease. He didn't know philosophy. He didn't know chiropractic. And he's the president of a chiropractic college, testifying in a court of law. Our list of 33 principles makes the statement that the cause of dis-ease is vertebral subluxation. What does this mean? The problem enters when we determine incorrectly that dis-ease is disease. It is the lack of ease otherwise, or coordination. Dis-ease is incoordination caused by vertebral subluxations. It is not equal to disease, and seeing this difference helps clarify the issue. Big difference between dis-ease conditions and dis-ease, the lack of the transmission of the mental impulse. In 1895, D.D. Palmer discovered chiropractic. This was his idea. He brought it around, and together with he and his son, they developed it. They developed the philosophy, they developed the science, and they developed the art. They are the authors of chiropractic, and chiropractic should continue to grow and evolve from the foundation that these guys built. Now, we're in the third paradigm of chiropractic thought. But the third paradigm of chiropractic thought is right in line with what these guys were working on. It hasn't wavered from it. There are other places in our profession that have completely gone off the rails and taken the profession to different places. But within the subluxation-centered part of the profession, the third paradigm is right in line with what these guys are doing. We adhere to their definition. Chiropractic should continue to grow and evolve from the foundation that they built, but it should not deviate from the original intent of the founders. And I believe in the subluxation-centered side of the profession, that's exactly what's going on. And in the subluxation side of the profession, we as practitioners, that's what we should strive to practice. So now we're going to talk about philosophy a little bit. This is what really excites me. When I started looking into philosophy, understanding philosophy, it just turned a lot of lights on. What was philosophy all about? How did it work? What were people thinking? And I really enjoy looking into chiropractic philosophy and the origins of other philosophies and what people are thinking about it. You know, there are people that say, we're that philosophical group and they put us down because of it. but we're the thinkers in the profession. We're the people that think about what we do and figure things out. We're the ones that understand why what is. Article 7, BJ says, while chiropractic philosophy is one but an infinite number of philosophies, and everything has a philosophy. People that say they don't have a philosophy have a philosophy. That's their philosophy. Law has a philosophy, the practice of law. Defense attorneys have a philosophy, and prosecuting attorneys have a different philosophy. Medicine has a philosophy. Art has a philosophy. Our art has a philosophy. Our science has a philosophy. BJ studied chiropractic, he investigated chiropractic scientifically, and there was a philosophy that he adhered to while he was going through all that. BJ studied the art, the techniques, and there was a philosophy he adhered to while going through all that. So we all take part in a philosophy, whether you believe it or not, whether you understand it or not. It's a part of all our lives, and it's just a very important thing to try and get to understand. So when somebody asks you what your philosophy is, you can stand up boldly and tell them. You can stand up with confidence and spout it. This is one of many philosophies. Chiropractic is one of many philosophies and one special science. It should be kept in mind, though, there is enough for a lifetime of study. What's going on in chiropractic? We can think about and think about and think about and not get to the end. We're in the third paradigm of chiropractic thought. You know what? The fourth paradigm's out there waiting to be discovered. It just keeps going on. Chiropractic science. There's so much room for chiropractic science to evolve. It was so strong and healthy under BJ's guidance. In the 60s and 70s, the technique people came in, and they really did a lot of work with the science of chiropractic. We've kind of fallen off in the science, in new discoveries in chiropractic in the last few decades. But there's a ton of information to be learned out there about what it is that we do and why we do it. So there's never a time to rest. There's never a time to give up. There's just lots more to happen. And it can happen at the hands of any of us. So what is philosophy? Philosophy is the love of wisdom. What is wisdom? Wisdom's knowledge. You know, we take in a lot of facts. You go to school, you read books, you do things. You acquire knowledge, you acquire information, and that becomes knowledge. Wisdom is what you do with that knowledge. Wisdom is the knowledge that you use to make decisions. You can make wise decisions using your knowledge. You can make unwise decisions using your knowledge. Philosophy is the love of wisdom, the love of what happens with the knowledge that we acquire. The knowledge of phenomena is explained by or resolved into causes and reasons, powers, and laws. The knowledge of phenomena. Philosophy is the knowledge of phenomena. What is phenomena? Any fact or event that is apparent to the senses can be scientifically described. Anything we see that can be described by science is a phenomenon. A lunar eclipse is a phenomenon because we see the sky darken, we see the black dot where the sun's supposed to be, and we understand that as the planets rotate, things are lining up in just the right order, and that's what happens. That's science explaining a lunar eclipse. Can you imagine way back before they had that science, before they had that awareness of astronomy, and an eclipse came? They thought it was a supernatural event. They did not realize that that was a natural event. And philosophy, the love of wisdom, is what helps to explain the phenomena. Philosophy conceived as a branch of learning is in the narrowest sense equivalent to metaphysics. Well, there's another word that kind of gets us in trouble when we use it. We're metaphysical, and we have these metaphysical beliefs and all that. What is metaphysics? When I was studying this several years ago, and I was reading about what Aristotle did, it really amazed me how things get distorted, what people do and how over time, and it's like you start down here and you whisper something into somebody's ear and they pass it on. By the time kids over here, it's totally different. And that's kind of what metaphysics is. And metaphysics is really a neat thing, but we have a misunderstanding of it. We misuse the word. And I think that gets us in trouble a little bit. So what is metaphysics? Most people think metaphysics is only the study of the supernatural. When I think of metaphysics, I think of the little gypsy lady sitting in a room with a crystal ball. That's just the first thing that pops into my head. But rather than being a study of a particular subject, metaphysics is a method of study that Aristotle created. It's a method of studying things that are not natural, things beyond the natural. Chiropractic uses metaphysics. It uses that method of study to understand universal intelligence, innate intelligence, and the mental impulse. In chiropractic, universal intelligence is not natural. Universal intelligence is a supernatural force. Innate intelligence is a force that's beyond the natural. And the mental impulse is a force that is not a natural force. It's something beyond the natural. It's not physical. And we use metaphysics. We use metaphysics as a method of study to try and figure out what these things are, to understand what they are. Metaphysical thought was first studied in depth by Aristotle in 350 BCE, before the Christian era, in a series of writings referred to as Aristotle's treatise. And that's the word that I try to remember when thinking of this way of thinking, Aristotle's treatise, where he developed a system of study or a way to think about things not physical, like energy, thoughts, wisdom, intelligence. It was not until 1 CE, when his writings were compiled into a series of 14 books, when Ralph Stevenson picked up all these papers from Aristotle and put them into a book, he called it Metaphysics. So 351 years after Aristotle put this together, some guys found the papers and they compiled it into 14 books. There was that much information. They compiled it into 14 books and they called it metaphysics. That term metaphysics was used to describe his work. Aristotle also referred to his work as the first philosophy. And it's not the first philosophy to be discovered, and it's not the first philosophy to be looked at, to study. It's the first thing we should use in studying philosophy. It's the fundamental. It's a level of thinking that is at the highest level a generality. In deductive reasoning, the pyramid at the bottom is the widest. And as we pare things down and we deduce and deduce and deduce and get to our conclusion at the top, just one thought. Down here at the bottom is our metaphysical method of thinking that was created by, that we use to study these things, that was created by Aristotle. The literal translation of metaphysics is meta, which is after, and physics, the physical. So things after the physical are beyond the physical. After the natural. Oh, there's that word. Now let's pull that one out. After the natural. What was natural? Chiropractic is natural. Chiropractic is a philosophy, science, and art of the natural. Not things beyond the natural. Of things natural. Aristotle suggested that the study of the non-physical should only take place after one has studied and developed a good understanding of the physical. Don't go out into the esoteric, don't go out into the clouds and try and figure out what's going on out there until you know what's going on here. You know, the more we understand as chiropractors, as doctors of health, the more we understand the human body, the more we examine the human body, the more we understand the organisms and the way things function, the more we appreciate the non-physical, the intelligent creation of the physical. So it's important when we look at the heart and we see blood pressure and what makes blood pressure go up and down, why does that happen? How does that occur? How does the liver function? Why do enzymes do this? Why do enzymes do that? Why does your blood sugar go up? Why does your blood sugar go down? What affects this? What affects that? The more we understand that, the more it shows, it informs us about the intelligence of the creation of the human body. The more it helps us understand that there's something bigger than us, that there is an intelligent creation. That's not what we deal with. That's what we appreciate in chiropractic. That's what chiropractic understands vitalistic thought. Chiropractic understands vitalism. We're not a vitalistic science, philosophy, science, and art, but we get it. We understand it and we agree with it. That's what makes it so easy for us to understand the natural. Aristotle makes the distinction between things that are better known to us and things that are better known to themselves, and said we should begin our study of things better known to us, the physical, and arrive ultimately at an understanding of things that are better known to themselves, the non-physical. Later on, we'll see a statement by BJ, and it's exactly this statement. But then he says the really smart guys can learn about the things that are known to themselves and come back to the things that are known to us. But I think this is absolutely right. The more we know about what we know, the easier it'll be to understand the things that we can't put our hands on. Science, art, and philosophy. The definition of chiropractic states that chiropractic is a philosophy, science, and art of things natural. This is in Stevenson's, Article 3. Put simply, science describes what chiropractic is. What chiropractic is, the art of chiropractic is how it's done, and the philosophy is the why of the science and the art. Chiropractic philosophy is the explanation of chiropractic. It explains the why of everything. It tells us why we do what we do. And if we throw chiropractic out of our education, if we ignore it, if we don't use it, then we don't understand wholly what it is that we do. And if we don't understand what we're doing, and we don't get results that somebody else is looking for, maybe we'll try and do things to accommodate them rather than accommodate chiropractic, because we didn't quite get what it was all about. Chiropractic is a radical science. It's an about-face of everything else that was going on in 1927, and it's still an about-face of most of what's going on today. It's a different way of thinking, a different way of looking at how the body functions and what makes health and what makes disease. It's a right about face in method and reasoning. It is contrary to methods of healing in common use in the world. For that reason, it is misunderstood by those who have not had its benefits or are ignorant of its principles. Because of this wide difference, it is not always understood by those who practice it. But many of these persons doubt because of their misunderstanding. However, all chiropractors who really adjust the spine, adjust the cause of dis-ease in the spine, do use philosophy to some extent, whether they believe in it or not. I tell people you don't have to believe in chiropractic for it to work. You don't have to have faith in it. But the chiropractor needs to believe in chiropractic, to practice it. Well, he's saying, even if we don't get it, if you are working to adjust the subluxation, you're practicing within the philosophy. You may not get what you're doing, but as long as you're out to correct the subluxation, you're within bounds of the philosophy. And that's kind of a neat thing. You know, you're getting results. You don't know why, but you're getting them. And that's what that's all about. But we have to understand, we have to be the ones that know what chiropractic is. That's our responsibility. And we have to know it with confidence, and we have to speak it boldly so people will pay attention to it. So that's the first half. That's the philosophy and the science of chiropractic. We're going to go over a couple things now. We're going to go over the science and art. But if you want to get a drink or fill your cup or something, yeah.
Let's take a break now.
Take 5. Science. You know, science is what is lagging in our profession right now. It's kind of dropped off. And we've had a few guys over the last few decades. You know, Pierce Stillwagon back in, probably the 70s. And, Jay Holder's out there now. He's doing some work with chiropractic. And he's come up with an instrument with his torque release technique and things like that. But there's not a lot of effort, and the colleges aren't developing any research programs that are really chiropractic oriented and things like that. And a lot happened before us that paved the way to get us where we are now. And we're kind of riding on the coattails of that. But BJ said there's enough science out there and there's enough philosophy that we could be learning forever. We could be studying forever. And we need a little bit of a shot in the arm to get some of that going again. But what we're going to look at here is some of the science. Our opponents say chiropractic isn't scientific. And there's a ton of science in chiropractic. And it's amazing to me what things were developed under a chiropractic influence. Article 4 is a quote from Webster's. Science is accumulated and formulated with reference to the discovery of general truths or the operation of general laws. Knowledge classified and made available in work or life or the search for truth. Comprehensive, profound, philosophical knowledge. So, philosophical knowledge is used in scientific research. And so when people are telling us that our philosophy doesn't have any value, it has great value. And we just, we don't get our philosophy. And when people start putting it down and talking about it, we kind of hang our heads, maybe a little embarrassment, a little shame, and we don't defend it. But we should really be standing up and defending our philosophy. It's big in the development of science. Any branch or department of systematized knowledge considered as a distinct field of investigation or objective study. Well, that's what chiropractic is. It's a department of systemized knowledge. It's a distinct field. It's a field of investigation and study. Though chiropractic is young, comparatively, it is nonetheless well-developed science with proven facts and plausible theories based upon those facts and precise art. All of them systematize knowledge and a distinct field of investigation or object of study. So chiropractic was young in 1927. It was only 32 years old, but a lot went on up to that point, and a lot more went on for the next 25 years. A philosophy grows as its correlated discoveries and inventions grow. That's interesting too. Why hasn't our philosophy evolved more than it has? Our science hasn't evolved. We quit thinking about ways to analyze the spine and to look for subluxation, determine what a subluxation is, and understand nerve interference and things like that. We stopped looking for different ways to do that. And as a result, our discovery and our development of our philosophy has suffered also. And that goes both directions, I think. No science bursts forth complete on its first formulation. It must make its slow advance from fact to theory to hypothesis, thence back to more facts and be explained by the same theory or as amended to a new theory. You know, chiropractic didn't happen, boom. We didn't end up with upper cervical side posture toggle recoil the day it started. We started out with VD and some guy laying on a dining room table and getting wailed on, you know, and we thought it was a discovery for deafness. And from that point, it evolved to what it is that we have today, and all the different techniques and all the different methods that we have for analyzing the spine and determining time of subluxation. No science is ever complete because new facts and relations and new phenomena are forcing themselves upon our consciousness, seeking for more classification and explanation in conformity to the laws under which they exist. You know, we're in the digital age, computers. That opened up a whole new world of research and thought and understanding. We've taken an interest in a little tiny bit of that, and that's made a difference. You know, the new thermographic instruments and things, digital x-rays, that helps us, but we really haven't taken advantage of what's going on out there, and the science is not complete. No, there's always more to learn. There's always more to figure out. There's always more to understand. I see people outside the profession discovering ways to do things that would be useful to chiropractic. A fellow has invented a wristband that looks like a fit device, and it measures recovery time and exertion time. And he's determined that a person needs so much time to recover after so much exercise, whatever that be, whether it be mental exercise and working and doing your job at work, or physical exercise and whatever. And he tested this on the baseball players, the NBA, or National League Baseball, NLB. And he found out that hometown advantage was a fallacy. When a team came to town from another area, they got 1 hour less rest, 1 hour less recovery time for their daily routine than the hometown team. The hometown team got 1 hour more recovery time in their daily routine. And that 1 hour of recovery time equated to a 10% increase in performance. Okay? There's really neat information being generated out there, and in some way or some shape or form, chiropractic can use that to determine time of subluxation. John Hart at the college is doing that heart rate variability, and I thought when I saw that wristband, he talks about people taking their pulse multiple times a day, and they can tell when it's time from their heart rate variability when it's time to get adjusted, when they need to go to the chiropractor. Well, if you were wearing a wristband, wouldn't it be neat if somebody said, my band went off, I need to have an appointment today, There's so many opportunities out there that aren't being looked at, aren't being explored. And BJ saw in 1927, there's no end to this thing. It just keeps going. We just have to take advantage of the moment we're in. In X-ray, Geisler, 1858. And this, again, things didn't come out of the box all wrapped up and ready to go. 1858, Geisler discovered radiation. Hittoff, in 1860, 2 years later, starts working with the cathode ray tube. Crookes started in 1875, 15 years after that, 17 years after Geisler. He's still working with the Crookes tube. Hertz and Leonard found the cathode rays could penetrate opaque material in 1892. 30-some years, 34 years after radiation was discovered, they finally figured out it would penetrate opaque material. 1895, Röntgen discovered how to make X-rays. So things don't happen. Things happen slowly, step by step. 1910, 15 years after Röntgen had discovered X-rays, chiropractic got X-rayed. BJ got chiropractic and brought it to Palmer College and started experimenting with it. It's interesting what was going on with X-rays in the early years, how it was being used. And BJ got it and used it in a whole new way to discover new things. In 1934, stereographic films were made. When I went to when I went to Sherman College, Tom Gilardi donated his X-ray machine to the college. And he had a Fisher stereographic X-ray machine. He could take stereo X-rays. And he had a stereo X-ray viewer. And I used to see that around the college in the technique room and things. And I don't know if it's still there or not. But, there's some real interesting things out there that chiropractic is responsible for. And we kind of throw them in the trash. Somebody needs to have a chiropractic museum of all the things that chiropractic developed and created. There's some really important discoveries. There's some really important science out there that chiropractic had a hand in. And Palmer, they dumped all theirs down the elevator shaft, and we put ours out on the curb, I guess. 1934, stereographic film. 1935, with the use of X-ray, Palmer discovered the rotation of the atlas. He discovered that extra little bit of torque that it took to make a more specific correction in 1935, because of X-ray, because of his work with X-ray. The chiropractic purpose was not to use X-ray for therapeutic purposes, not to diagnose or treat. To ascertain normal or abnormal tissue, the character of fractures, or whether there was renal calculi, kidney stones, or a bullet in the body. Back in the early days, they looked for kidney stones and bullets. That's what was the big thing going on then. And fractures. We had already settled, and this is funny, who cared what was in there? We're going to make an adjustment. We're going to make it better. We don't need to know what it is. We just need to know how to make the adjustment. And whatever is in there, it'll get better.
That would be the premise. The premise in there is already that the body innately heals.
Yes. We had already settled on how the cure occurred. We did not care about pathological plates. We did not deal with fractures or dislocations. If there was a bullet or any foreign substance, that was the case for a physician or a surgeon, not for the chiropractor. This is monumental. This is something we all need to take home. We knew our place. We knew who we are. We knew what we are. And we proceeded to strengthen our position accordingly. We did what we do We did what we know how to do. We got the results because that's what we were experts at, and that's where we got our credit. It's not trying to be all things to all people. It's not trying to understand everything there is to be understood. It's to know who we are, what we are, and how to make that happen. This looks like my first x-ray machine. This looks like your first x-ray machine. Yeah. I got my first we were talking about guys starting practices and $200,000 worth of debt and blah, 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 blah. And I opened my office for $1,000. I bought a high-low table for $250, and I still have it. It's a manual Zenith high-low, and a Fisher X-ray and darkroom setup for $500. You know? No problem. No debt. Walked in, and it was easy. So I think things like that can still be done. We just have to try.
I got my first x-ray unit from a guy named George or John, came down to help me pick it up, and because we talked chiropractic philosophy with him, he lowered the price $1,000. We didn't have tools to take it out. Yeah. He was just excited that somebody knew chiropractic the way he had learned it. He lowered the price.
Anybody know the name Billy Reggio? Well, I came, to Blacksburg, the material was done by Extern and Mark. When I came to Blacksburg, Billy Reggio was in Columbia, and he set carpenters up for practice. And he, if you want to be straight or be straight, he had everything to, but anyway, he let me name, how much I paid him monthly. I think maybe $50 what I paid monthly. And because after first year I didn't go to practice, next year I increased it to maybe like $75 or whatever. So that's quite good. Set up practice for almost nothing. You know?
Yeah.
And how did I say the Frank is a Fisher X-ray machine? Frank, I use that thing for years.
It was interesting. And the interesting thing about finding bullets, I took an x-ray. Ron practices in Blacksburg, South Carolina, and that's about as hillbilly in country as it gets around here back then. And a woman came in, and I x-rayed her, and she had some unusual things showing up on the x-ray. And I said, "What's this all about?" And she says, "Well, the boys were shooting at each other, and I got between them." She had buckshot in her body. So we were using x-ray to find bullets. The Scheidel Western x-ray was housed in the third bay, in a bay window on the third floor. We moved out 2 rent-producing beds to make way for scientific research. The college wasn't interested in making money as much as it was interested in making discoveries. It was all about the profession. It was all about the knowledge, all about getting more information to do what we do. Things have kind of changed, shifted gears a little bit, but this is a great model. What he did then, he set the standard that we should all follow. That's the important part of this slide. But the other part of this slide that just makes me scratch my head. The Scheidel Western X-ray unit was housed in a bay window on the 3rd floor room. This was, 1934? And X-ray was, brand new. And he had this building on the main drag in Davenport, and he wheels this X-ray unit out there, so when people walk by, and he told the world about what was going on with him, and I'm sure everybody in Davenport knew there was an X-ray machine in this window, and when they would walk by, they would look up to see the X-ray machine. I can just see that happening. So what's up with this? How do you get somebody to stand up there bare naked to get X-rayed with all of Davenport walking by? There you go.
You like that 20-second exposure time on there.
Yeah, well, there you go. Hold your breath. This was at Sherman College. This is an X-ray, stereo X-ray viewer. Is it still there? They have it? Oh, well, good. the X-ray stereoscope view box. And you put an X-ray, and you would take an X-ray, the tube would shift about 3/4 of an inch, and you'd take another exact X-ray. And you put one in the right view box, one in the left view box, and you look through the mirror thing there, and you get this stereoscopic view of an atlas vertebra or whatever. And it was okay. It didn't pan out, I don't think, to be all that it was, but they were thinking, they were trying things. All the things that came out of Palmer College over time, all the discoveries. Dawes Evans, who was on the staff, he invented the NCM, which became the Murdoch instrument, if anybody remembers that. When I went to Sherman College, we had an instrument which was a second generation stab at the Murdoch, at the NCM. And then, Sherman College was instrumental. They were the ones that went forth and made the first real upgrade in chiropractic instrumentation. And they had the Accolade developed, which was a digital thermographic instrument, or an infrared thermographic instrument. And now we're on with the Titron and different things. Otto Steinbeck of our staff developed the NCGH. That was the graph that came out of the NCM. And the Murdoch instruments were able to do that too. There was a needle that you watched go back and forth, and you would see where the hot spots were on the spine as you made your glide. But they also had it so it would print out a graph. The neurocalorimeter, the contour graphometer, perfecting the electroencephaloneuromentempograph. That was an interesting thing. Jim Curtis of Minneapolis for his side posture table. Clay Thompson was back with these guys then. And he helped in the development of the side posture table. He helped out with the clamp used in the spinograph. And for the Palmer-Thompson headpiece, the Palmer-Thompson adjusting table, and the Lino drive director. And Sherman College has a Lino drive director. I'm hoping that's in the museum.
Probably is.
Yeah.
You gotta admit, we come up with the best names.
Yeah, well, and my favorite is the electroencephaloneuromentempograph. I mean, every letter in the alphabet. What a,
Even a contour graphometer.
Yeah. I talked about BJ's philosophy. BJ's philosophy was, if you're going to do it right. Eliminate all the variables. Eliminate any point of doubt, any questions, anything.
But he wasn't a scientist.
He was.
Yeah, I know.
He had a grounded, shielded booth. Radio was just out in those days, and there's radio waves in the air. There's rays from the sun and all the weird things out there. And he created this booth that he hoped would block out any outside interference. So when he examined a person, whatever way he was doing, there was no possibility of any outside distortion affecting his examination. Our laboratories are grounded. To this end, the B.J. Palmer Chiropractic Clinic has built an electrocardiograph recording, sphygmometer, polygraph, neurocalograph laboratories, which are completely shielded and grounded. Floors, walls, ceilings, and doors, correctly and completely grounded that any electrical bombardment attempting to enter the room would be immediately dissipated without reaching the room or the body of the person being examined. On which the record of constant is being taken.
In volume 25, he goes chapter by chapter, ad nauseum, about how he eliminated everything. I mean, this takes up half the book at least.
It was serious business. There was nothing ramshackle about it. You talk about the difference between a specific adjustment and a manipulation. That was the difference between real science and junk science. That was about really wanting to know the answer that you were seeking.
Sherman had a working model at one time.
Really?
Yeah.
All right.
But they can't find the electrodes
the subluxation specific, the adjustment specific. Dasa Evans, the NCM. Dasa Evans entered the life of B.J. Palmer as a patient who regained his health. Then he became a student follower. He graduated and became a loyal chiropractor. He was an electrical engineer. He developed, invented, and patented the neurocalorimeter and proposed it to our profession. By doing so, he entered our personal as well as our professional family. You know, BJ embraced people that were on the same page. He took them in. He appreciated them, and he liked to have them around him. I think I had a video here, but of BJ doing a thing, a glide. This is it. This is the visograph. And we used this when I was a student. We were taking graphs with the Murdoch instrument, which was very similar. It looked like that. It was very similar to the NCM. And as you would glide up someone's neck, the needle would swing back and forth. And then you would go over, and on a piece of paper, you would try and duplicate that line. And you kept those papers in that person's file. And you did that in your practice run. And I did that in early days of practice. And you would compare those papers and look for the pattern in that reading. The way we practiced this in school, someone stood behind this thing. This thing was about 7 foot tall. And they would slide that meter up these tracks. And they would swing the needle back and forth as it was going up the tracks. And as they would swing the needle, it was making a line on a paper behind that instrument. They would pull it out, and you would compare your line to the line that the instrument made. And that's how you perfected your ability to take readings on an instrument like that. And you know, we talk about it in philosophy. It's practice. You learn something, you practice it. You get good at it by doing it over and over and over again. And that's what they did. That's how they practiced making adjustments. That's how they practiced examining the spine. That's how they practiced doing leg checks over and over and over. Eliminate the variables. Get it right. The contour graphometer. Never saw one of these. That's a X-ray table laying down, a fluoroscopy table laying down, and the X-ray machine is the tube is up here, and there's some apparatus here, and that's what they strapped the person down onto the table with, and they would strap them down and hold them firm. We developed the contour graphometer, which graphed data could be subsequently duplicated as to a posture constant. The instrument had a traveling fine point crayon which electrically traveled at a definite rate of speed, which was graphed on a traveling paper. So what they would do, they would make this fluoroscopic image, and they would trace that image with a stylus, and it would recreate that tracing on another paper. I don't know if anybody remembers an Etch-a-Sketch. It was a drawing toy back in the day, and it had a stylus over here, and over here there was a stylus with a holder with a crayon in it, and you would trace a picture, and it would make that picture over on a blank sheet of paper. That's kind of what this thing did while somebody was laying there getting radiated. Yeah, there you go. This is the kind of images that would come out of that instrument, and they would lay you down, and we took two graphs, one A to P, the other lateral. Lateral, we took subsequent graphs and compared them. When we then traced these one or more graphs on translucent sheets overlapping one another, each over each other, each in a different color, to study the speed with which corrections took place of all the adaptive curves going back to normal. So when he would make an adjustment, when BJ would make an adjustment in the clinic, then they would lay you down and they would graph your spine. And you can see the dark line is just slightly different. And see down here, there's a little more change, slightly different from the red line. And they would see how your spine was changing after what effect an adjustment had on the spine. Here, the lateral image of the cervical spine, and they would draw the vertebra in, and the dark line showing the curve, the vertebra to the right more, the red line, the red images, it was in a different position. We don't use it today. It was an interesting idea. They were searching, they were seeking, they weren't afraid of failure. They were constantly looking for things that proved what they were doing, what they were thinking, and what they were talking about. There are great stories about the polygraph in the Green Books and how BJ used them and what he did with them. It's amazing. Chiropractic was instrumental in the proper use of the polygraph and in the development of the polygraph. The truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. What does chiropractic have? Why do they have an interest in the polygraph in the first place? That's the story of the Keeler polygraph, better known as the lie detector. In reality, it is a truth detector because it ferrets out the truth, and if properly operated and under the proper circumstances, it cannot fail. Truth will out in spite of any efforts to conceal it. Davenport has such a truth detector. It was invented by Professor Keeler of Northwestern University in Chicago, and there are but 4 in operation outside the university, and no more are being sold. But BJ had one. He was interested in science. He was looking for something. He put it in the grounded and shielded booth because he didn't want anything interfering with what was going on. When BJ would examine a person, you know, if you watch Law and Order or something, they strap some guy up to a thing and said, "Why'd you kill your wife? What were you doing last night?" You know, he put him in a grounded, shielded booth, laid him down on a cot, turned down the lights, put a damp cloth over their eyes, put them totally in a condition of ease. And then they had somebody very softly talk to them and ask them questions to elicit the most accurate responses from the machine. They just didn't go out there and force feed this thing to somebody. And he got better results than law enforcement in his way of using the polygraph. But here's his reason for using the polygraph. Innate mind knows only truth, thinks only truth, would react only to truth as a byproduct, whereas educated mind desires the lie, thinks the lie, and contrast between truth flow and innate mind and lie flow of educated mind produces a byproduct, a squiggly line on the graph, of difference between norm and abnormal in comparative reactions. That was his explanation of why the polygraph worked. It was the difference between educated and innate. And here it is, the jewel, you know, and there were 2 of these things. This is a smaller one. This is a 5-unit or a 5-channel setup, and the other one was an 8-channel setup. This is the electroneuroencephalotempograph, and this is like an EEG machine, and they had 8 channels and 16 leads, and they would place them on different parts of the body and take different readings from your body function, neurological function. The mechanical and electrical description of the electroencephalotempograph, they call it the tempograph, 1 and 2. The word and the instrument it represents has to do with brain and nerve impulse research. The instruments have been specifically built to our specifications for our research. These are the only ones of their kind in the world, and they are installed in a special research laboratory, shielded and grounded, bringing the total cost of this one department of the clinic to date to a little more than $50,000. 19, 20, 30, $50,000 was a lot of money. It wasn't about the profit, it was about the research. It was about the knowledge. It was about understanding what it is that we're trying to do. So that's what chiropractic science was all about. And that's how important chiropractic science, that's what they did back then with what they have to work with. We have so much more at our fingertips. We have all kinds of CAT scans, MRI machines. There are things out there that we could be doing all sorts of research with, and we're not taking advantage of it. We don't even cultivate our minds to think the thoughts of chiropractic research. And we aren't inspiring philosophical thought that will inspire scientific research. That's what needs to happen. That's the future of chiropractic. BJ said there's enough information out there, undiscovered information, to last a lifetime. I pushed that top button, Dwayne. Oh, all right. The art of chiropractic. The art of anything. What is art? What is art to each of us? Art is all around us. A lot of it doesn't get appreciated. There's artists all around us. A lot of them don't get appreciated. We're artists. This room is full of artists. This room is full of art. So what is art? This is a painting by George Seurat. It's in the Chicago Institute of Art. This is 1884 he painted this. It's a Sunday afternoon on the Seine River in Paris. You see this, and it almost looks like a two-dimensional stylized picture of this landscape scene. But when you go there to see that, it's pixelated. If you walk right up to that, all it is half-inch dots of color, like pixels on a new TV screen. And it makes absolutely no sense. You have to back up, and the farther away you get, the clearer the image gets. The closer you are, the more distorted. And this was his perception of what he saw that day in the park. This is his interpretation of that as an artist. And that's what art is. Art is our perception of what it is that we see and how we develop that perception. Some people call this art. Some people call this high art. Some people call this art. This is Picasso, 1903. This is a portrait of Sylvette David. And 1954. Painted that in 1954. This is also in the Art Institute in Chicago. That's his picture of a woman. That's what he saw. When he looked at this young girl, 19 years old, that's what impressed him about her. And people call this art. He called this art. Do you think the people that saw the first painting and then see this, do you think they're calling this art? Do you think people that see this call the first painting art? Some do, some don't. It's interesting. The interesting thing about this, there's Sylvette. That's what Picasso could do. He could be a realist when he wanted to be. And there is the picture of Sylvette that he painted. There. He worked with Sylvette for a number of months. She was his muse. And she had a lot of personality quirks. And as he talked with her and worked with her and got to know her, She was chased around. She was a very attractive young girl in Paris and got chased around by the guys a lot. And she was very shy, and that made her very timid, all this attention. And she had this long blonde hair that she'd pull back into a ponytail. And she was very timid and very embarrassed and ashamed of herself for getting all this attention. And she would wear big frumpy clothes when she would go outside, or men's suits and things like that. And she didn't realize what that was doing was making her more attractive to these guys that were chasing her. But that's what Picasso, this is what he saw in her story. This isn't what he saw when he saw her in the chair. That's what he saw when he saw into her mind. That's how he saw that she looked. Her long blonde hair that everybody noticed. See this tiny little mouth? Somebody said, "Why is your mouth so small in the picture?" She says, "I wouldn't talk to him." So that's how he painted the mouth. This representation of Savette is Picasso's perception of what was in his mind, what he saw. And that's what art is. When we see a subluxation, when we see a person in our office, our perception of what's going on there leads up to what we do to make the adjustment, to make the correction. How we develop our art, how we make our adjustment. Some people call this art. This is a 1935 Bugatti Aerolith. There was only one ever made. It was made in 1934, and it was displayed at the 1935 Paris Auto Salon. A few months later, it was taken to London for the auto show, the auto fair, and then it disappeared, never to be seen again. They didn't know if Hitler took it because he went through Europe and took all the art back to Germany. They don't know if Bugatti hid it because he didn't want Hitler to get it. And nobody ever found it. They don't know if it was destroyed in bombing during the war or after the auto shows. Was it dismantled? I saw this car at the North Carolina Museum of Art earlier this year. And I went to the desk to see where gallery. There was an exhibition of 20 Art Deco cars going around the country. And the lady at the desk, one of the museum employees, said, "The cars are in this gallery, the real art's over here." Jay Leno says this is art. Art is in your mind. What is art to you? You know? Art is not only what you see here. There's art in what was created here. There's art in what was recreated here. The beauty of this car, a couple of guys in Canada found a 1935 Type 57 chassis. Numbers matching. They had 8 pictures of the aerolith and 1 oil painting. 8 black and white pictures. And descriptions, written descriptions. They stopped counting their hours at 10,000 in recreating this. This is valued to them at over $40 million. It's made out of magnesium. And if you know anything about magnesium, if you have a sheet of magnesium, you can throw a brick at it and it bounces off. Nothing happens to it. It's very hard and rigid. That they call magnesium the carbon fiber of the 1930s. Well, how'd they get all these curves and things in the magnesium? When they went to buy the magnesium from the metal supplier, it cost them $10,000 a sheet. And they told the guy what they were going to do with it. And he says, "You can't do that." Well, if you heat magnesium to 185 degrees, it bursts into flames, and it burns like a flare, and there's no putting it out. But if you heat it to 165 degrees, it'll start to bend. So they very carefully heated the magnesium, and they formed the body. And they used a sheet, and they went back to the supplier, and they said, we need another sheet. He says, I told you it wouldn't work. And they took their magnesium, and they went, and they worked. And they came back, and they got another. He goes, you figured it out, didn't you? And they didn't say anything, and they went back. And he came back, and they said, you're doing it, aren't you? You made it happen. And yeah, they did. The art was in figuring it out. They said they could have made this car out of aluminum or fiberglass. They could have made a replica of the original car. But this is a 1935 version of the Bugatti Aeroflight. It's not a duplicate, it's not a replica, it's not a knockoff, it's a real Bugatti Aeroflight made to the exact specifications of the original. Just to do that is a work of art done by artists. People with passion for what they do. Does that describe chiropractors or chiropractic to you? You know, it should. On the other hand, there are these guys at the Charlotte Motor Speedway this weekend, if you want to go up and see them. And this is art. This is a rat rod. This looks like it was a 1949, 50-ish Ford with a Buick engine and a Mack truck radiator and a Model A front axle and who knows what else they could find. And they cut it down and they worked it, and the patina on the metal was left just as it was because that was the art to them. That was the expression of the art. They look at this and they see accomplishment here, and there's something that they're proud of. Is that art? Not to everybody, but that's art. And it was made by an artist. How about that? This is from the Easy Rider bike show that comes through every year in February. These things are spectacular to see. These are made by Hell's Angels and the Outlaws, and these are made by the most emaciated, screwed up, handicapped, disfigured, tattooed, drug-crazed people ever. You look at them and you wonder if any of them ever got past the 6th grade. And they can create things like this. This is perfect. If you get up close to this, every stitch, every weld, every bit of paint is perfect. All right, take a breath. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Quickly. There's art. This is the kind of art I like. This is from a restaurant called Sushi Samba in Miami, Florida. It's Asian-Japanese fusion. Really? Whoever came up with that? There's actually a thing in Brazil. A lot of Japanese live in Brazil, and they put it together. You got some shrimp, you've got some sea bass, you have corn, you have something green, and a quail egg. And you mix it all up and you put a bite in your mouth, and it just bursts. Okay? That's art to the chef. That's art to the senses. That's art to smell. That's art to taste. And that's visual. Just the creation of the plate. That is art. And of course, Crowder's Mountain in North Carolina, Kings Mountain, North Carolina. Crowder's Mountain looking north towards the Blue Ridge Mountains. That's the art of nature. That's the art created by the supernatural in the natural. And all these people would agree with you. So, the skill, dexterity, or power of performing certain actions acquired by experience, study, observation, That's what art is. That's what chiropractic is. Knack. Some people have a knack for art. Some people have a knack for chiropractic. Some people are just a natural. And you know those people. If you get out into the chiropractic community, you recognize some people have a knack, and others of us, we kind of work at it. Skill, adaptation of things in the natural world to the uses in human life, human contrivance and ingenuity. And these are the definitions from Webster, but these are definitions of chiropractic. These are the definitions that BJ brought forth in his notes. The general principles of any branch of learning or of any developed craft, a system of rules or organized modes of operation serving to facilitate the performance of certain actions. That describes art. That describes chiropractic. A systematic application of knowledge or skills is effecting a desired result. Also, an occupation or business requiring such knowledge or skills. And what occupation would that be? What skill would that be? That would be us. That would be chiropractic. The art of chiropractic consists of skill in analysis, skill in palpation and adjusting the vertebra, most of it requiring dexterity with hands. It requires many hours of drill and study, and since the chiropractor's hands are his only tools or instruments, they are of the same value to him as a musician's hands or voice are to the musician. A little bit of heaven out at Palmer College, created by B.J. Palmer to bring a little bit of art into the chiropractic environment. Again, inside B.J.'s house, the art that he gathered from around the world. He had art of chiropractic in his life, but he had art of the world in his life also. What is art of chiropractic? The chiropractor should do all he does for the patient in a systematic way. All mechanical conceptions are mechanically systematized. All arts are systematically arranged. When art ceases to be systematically arranged, it ceases to be an art. It becomes manipulation. To make the art of chiropractic an art, it becomes necessary to arrange it in a logical form and a logical sequence. And that's the difference between locating, analyzing, and correcting a vertebral subluxation and manipulating the spine to relieve a condition. To make the art of chiropractic an art, it becomes necessary to arrange it in a logical form and a logical sequence from A to Z, or from 1 to 100, working so far as you can from the known to the unknown. Remember what Aristotle said? You start out in the most general and you work to the specific. The majority of systematic reasoners work upon the known facts to the unknown facts, trying to make the unknown correspond logically and systematically with things known, beginning from the bottom and working up. So who are the artists in chiropractic? B.J. Palmer of Davenport, Iowa, philosopher, scientist, artist. Who are the artists? For some months after his discovery of chiropractic principle, D.D. limited its application to that small number whom he could personally serve. It was only at the repeated insistence of his son B.J. that the discoverer undertook the training of a selected few in the art of chiropractic as it was understood in the 90s. That son realized that the two Palmers could serve but a very small part of a great mass of humanity needing chiropractic. Though he was but a lad entering his 14th year when he was adjusting people, when the discovery of chiropractic was made. So who are the artists in chiropractic? We are. And I'm going to end it here. This is a great little thing. It's in volume 23, page 11. The story of the mosaics. It talks about the development of your art and how people develop the art within them. So I appreciate your interest. I hope that I gave you something to chew on, something to think about. I hope that this was a good time for you guys, and I hope that you enjoyed getting around together with each other. So thank you.
All right, we'll just